Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of UnBolted. I'm your host, MJ Bolt. And with us this afternoon, we have Lyle Dach. Lyle, thanks for being with us.
You bet.
All right. We're going to talk about, I didn't have time to make my tinfoil hat.
Neither did I.
Meant to do it, but I was going to take it off anyway, because we're going to talk about weather modification and geoengineering and what's going on in our skies.
Yeah.
And so Lyle's here. He's a landscaper, developer, and he's going to share, we're going to dive into this topic and then talk about why we're talking about this, which is because Rob Chase, our representative Rob Chase, has filed a bill, Washington State House Bill 2222.
That's right.
And we need it to get a hearing. So this is a call to action. But we wanted to start out with kind of the overview and talk about this topic because, you know, it isn't a conspiracy theory. I mean, I know some people think it is. But Lyle, before we do that, I want people to get to know you.
Yeah.
Lyle's been an amazing member in our Spokane Valley community for a long time. Lyle, tell everybody about yourself and how you got to where you are. I know you've done different roles in the community, but also how it pertains to this conversation that we're having about weather modification.
Yeah, Lyle Dach, lived in the Spokane Valley, raised my family of 3 children with my wife, Shelly, whom I'm still married to. We were high school sweethearts. Been married 33 years this year, so I hope I have that right. Anyways, children are all grown and out of the house. My wife and I have been business owners for 35 years. I've been in business for 35 years in the landscape industry. I do everything from landscape construction to horticultural services. We spray lawns, we mow, we prune, and I've got a good crew of guys that have worked for me for quite a long time. And as you go through the landscape horticulture business, you just see these different things that have kind of transpired outdoors. And I'll share a little bit of that with you today. But also sat on the GOP for 14 months as the vice chair and sit on the board of my church. I'm a deacon there. And I've just been a part of a lot of other committees in and throughout our community, being involved politically. It's kind of a necessary evil being a business owner and really having concerns about the direction of our political climate and where it's taking us in our communities. And I think it's our due diligence to actually stand up and help serve in that capacity wherever we can. We can all make the excuse we don't have time, but we have to make the time, and, the 3 things that are most near and dear to my heart is politically is children, protecting our children, parents' rights is part of that, weather modification, ending those programs. And then I'm really, nervous about all this large AI development with the data centers and where that's taking and what that's going to do to our individual sovereignty. And so those are probably my 3 top political topics that I always want to touch on when I talk to people.
So you've been in the landscaping business for 35 years, Lyle.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So you have a long history of seeing impacts to the environment and stuff. And that's why I think this is going to be such a fascinating conversation with you. As Lyle said, we worked together on the GOP. When I was chair, Lyle was vice chair for about 1.5 years. And so we worked very closely. I got to know Lyle. I met Lyle before that when he was campaigning, helping Brian Noble's campaign for county commissioner. But I actually met you even before that.
That's
way
right.
Back in the days when we were doing some things with University High School and Central Valley High School, and we were working together. We had some tragedies in the community, and we didn't we do a joint tailgate party, Lyle? Isn't that how we first got connected?
That's right. Your kids went to U High. My kids went to Central Valley, and we started the tailgates up at Central Valley. We got all the student body there, and we were serving kids every Friday night during the football season, up to about 500 students a night. And parents and kids came out. We had a great time. We had a lot of parent involvement. And then we had that tragedy with the kids where they got in that car accident. And then you and I came together, and I think we did kind of a Toys for Tots kind of drive, and then did that joint tailgate over at University. And so U High. And that was a special moment. And I think that kind of that community spirit, camaraderie just kind of grew and set in from there, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, let's dive into this topic some more because it is a big one, and we'll probably do a pretty high level of it. But the reason why we are bringing this to you is that we kind of formed a little group together, a few months back, and said, let's talk about this. We kind of peripherally been talking about this. I know for me, I've been watching the skies for quite a while, going, I do not remember these lines in the sky growing up. And there were airplanes then. So what the heck is going on? And a bunch of us actually were. And so, even my sons who are now 28 and 30 would be like, wow, they're really painting the skies today. And so after, a few years of us talking about it, just in between other friends and colleagues, Lyle, you pulled a group together back a few months ago, including Rob Chase and other people from across the state, and said, can we get a bill? Rob, Representative Rob Chase, would you be willing, if we can, use other states and what they're doing and what they've passed, as a model, would you be willing to sponsor a bill? So that's what we worked on, right? And talk a little bit more about that process, and I'll pull that bill up.
Yeah, as you pull that bill up, there's 10 of us on that team tentatively, right? And we met back in late July. Before that, it was Mark Anthony, myself, John Charleston, and Rob Chase, and we were over at Larry Haskell's retirement party, and we started talking about the weather modification, and I really just kind of stressed to Rob, hey, we really need to get something done about this. This is bothersome to a lot of people, and the concern is growing worldwide at this point. It's not just here in Spokane. We're noticing it. We're just a couple of people with these weird thoughts and theories, where we just complain and just to complain. We're not the only ones to observe this. I mean, this is all the way over in Europe. They're talking about solar radiation management that the government has put on them, and they haven't had any clear skies for months on end, and everybody's wondering where the sun's at. You have crop failures throughout the United States. You have droughts throughout the United States, throughout the world, really. You have high intensity storms that are coming through. I don't know how many 1,000-year storms we had or experienced this year just in the United States, but it's over 10. I mean, there's numerous amounts of over 1,000-year storms. And a lot of people want to just kind of chalk it up to, hey, it's climate change. And I'm like, well, if you want to have the climate change conversation, I'm all for it. But we really got to, look at the elephant in the room, and we got to address this, weather modification issue that we're all seeing and we know is happening. And this isn't just because I outside and I see a line being painted in the sky by one of the jets, and it's potentially one of these, quote unquote contrails that the media wants us to, believe that it is from, the altitude that they're flying at, and it's the heat that's coming out of those jet engines. And then somehow, they stay persistent and they spread out. And then all of a sudden your sunny day that you had forecasted from the media early in the morning, all of a sudden you're now looking at a completely overcast sky. It looks like the threat of rain's coming by evening time, and you're just wondering what happened. And so it's important. I'll just kind of back up a little bit. I got involved with this. It was probably 2005, 2006, and I would come home, MJ, and I would be just beat tired from working out in the field with my business. And I had this neighbor that lived next door. My wife kind of, quasi caregave for him. And his name was John. He served in the military for a lot of years, both world wars, and just really has been around the block, quite a bit, and an older guy. And he would just come over, sit on my patio, smoke cigarettes, and just chat with me as I was kind of relaxing, taking my boots off at the end of the day. And he'd look up in the sky and goes, oh, there's another yet trail. And he'd call them yet trails. And I was like, John, what are you talking about? And he goes, those yet trails, they're spraying the skies. They're making weather. I said, you are crazy, old man. That is not what they're doing. I totally was oblivious to it. I didn't believe it at all. And he probably did that 2-3 years before I kind of come to the conclusion there might be something to this. And I remember the day very clearly because I was actually in the valley working with a landscape crew. And we were on a job, And we were looking forward to the sunny skies, because the first thing I do is I always watch the weather, make sure we're good before I get my crews out the door. So we know what to expect throughout the day for spraying, for landscaping. What, those are the variables that we have to pay attention to. And anyways, all of a sudden, it was probably about 9 o'clock. We'd been out there for a couple hours. And then all of a sudden, we just see this line through the sky. Then we see another line through the sky. And then they're coming right over Micah Peak. And then all of a sudden, there's some coming from the north. And there's some coming from the south. And then next thing you know, the whole sky's just painted with lines. And there was this one morning, and this is back in 2006, I actually called Q6. I says, like, hey, what is going on? Is there a military operation going on? Have you heard anything? And apparently she had been getting all kinds of calls. She goes, you're not the first one to call about this. Everybody is calling in and wondering what's going on. It was that obvious. So it wasn't like normal standard air traffic. You had 6 or 8 planes working in conjunction, different patterns, building this cross grid. And that didn't just happen that one day. It was continuous thereon. So you're kind of like, okay, what is going on? So you start this deep dive of kind of asking these questions. You're really kind of, got that question mark, and you're going, this isn't natural. This isn't the way this is. Next thing that you start noticing is when our storms come through on our Dopplers. And MJ, I don't know, do you have that picture that I sent you for one of the Doppler pictures in Spokane? This is a recent one that I just took the other day. And
keep talking, and I'll
so on our Dopplers, what I've noticed back in 2006, and as every year progressed thereafter, I noticed this intensity that these clouds these Dopplers were starting to share with us in the public. And so instead of just having like a light shade green and then it kind of get a little bit darker and the whole thing is just kind of even as it comes over top of Spokane into Coeur d'Alene, all of a sudden you're seeing the development of these straight linear kind of lines and these intense cells that would just all of a sudden go from light shade of green, instantly turn on, and you have this red, yellow, violet colored kind of Doppler color showing on the Dopplers and in these areas, these regions. And so you can see like right over Davenport there. Usually what happens is there's a cloud base that will have to push against the mountains. And then that should be all the way from Colville all the way down to about Cheney, Pasco area right there. And it would slowly start to darken up on the back edge of that. But as of, like 2006 kind of moving forward, I've noticed these clouds just all of a sudden start to show up. And then this intense where you see that red, that orange, and kind of those pinks and stuff show up at, you just see in that dark green, all of a sudden you see these intense cells kind of moving through the regions. And what happens is they just get this torrential kind of downpour. You get a lot of violent lightning, you get violent winds, and it just creates this big storm that really was never forecasted. And then whether it's snow or rain, it just, lays down a bunch of precipitation in a very, very short period of time. And that's, as you kind of go through the research, you kind of realize that's from cloud seeding. And so we can go and kind of get onto a lot of different websites. There is just a plethora of information that will corroborate what you and I are thinking and what we're saying here. It's not just this one simple little Doppler screen. I can go into one government document after another that really kind of lets you know this is what's actually really taking place. So you'll see stuff like that, and people will call that a contrail, condensation trail. They'll say that's the condensation from the jet engine. And that really isn't what that is. That's, a mixture of ingredients that's being dispersed as a stratospheric aerosol. And there's a lot of what they call nanoparticulates that are involved with creating that layer base right there. And so those lines in the sky that come out of the jet, they're kind of that, skinny little stream, and then they broaden out. And look at this map right here. You see right in the center of the screen, that one that kind of goes across the screen horizontally. See how that kind of teardrops down? That's the metals from the stratospheric aerosol injection kind of dissipating out. And someone will say, well, how does it spread out? Well, when you put all these different nanoparticulates in there, aluminum, barium, strontium, graphene oxide. You've got other things in there like copper, silver iodide. Those are all the different types of nanoparticulates that they're putting in there. And then you use, like we see all these cell phone towers that are sitting around the landscapes everywhere. And we think, okay, well, it's for cell phone communication. No, it's not all just dedicated to cell phone communication. You can go to talk to one of those tower guys and they'll tell you there's things on there that you don't want to know about. But it's more than, T-Mobile trying to get you service out in Davenport. It actually does have an effect to control and manipulate weather patterns. So I don't know if that kind of helps us kind of move along here, but that was kind of the groundwork or the reasoning why we want to get this HB2222 up and running and in front of our legislators and say, we have a real serious concern as the general public. And we see a lot of, Alzheimer's at an all-time high. We see congestive heart failure. We've got sinus and problems. We've got all kinds of molds growing everywhere. I would have to, as a horticulturist, I can tell you from in my field, as we've kind of from 2006 and I started really paying attention to this, there's a lot of what you would call ornamental type vegetation that is very rugged for our climate. It's native to the area. And I'll just give you an example of that. If anybody's been down to the Spokane Valley Mall the last couple of years, we used to have those Akabano cherry trees and those Japanese plum trees that were kind of lining the roadways as you go in. Well, 3 years ago, those all got decimated and taken out. And it wasn't because of a misapplication. It wasn't because of a bad, hard winter. It's because what's happening is when you get these heavy metals coming down from the atmosphere, those nanoparticulates, they land on those branches, they land on that foliage. And what we've seen is some of those soils that have got so heavy laden with some of this, aluminum, barium, strontium, graphene. That graphene's horrible, by the way. We'll get into that in a minute. What it starts to do is it starts to weld off all of, kind of the leaves, how they breathe through photosynthesis and how they absorb through the leaves. And then it goes into the soils and all those little feeler roots that try to, grow and adapt new root base so that it gets the tree a little bit stronger and it, can produce more vegetation on the top. It welds those little tiny little itty bitty roots off, and it causes it to have a dieback underneath the soil, causing the tree to just completely be a complete and utter failure. And so we've seen that not only with those trees down at the Spokane Valley Mall, but we've also trees all around town. There was one year during Bloomsday, usually our honey locust or shade master locust trees always come out and they start to bloom out then. There was one year during Bloomsday, they didn't come out. And when they did come out, they were very sparse in growth. And so you only had a little, a leaf pod here, you had a little leaf pod there. And it was consistent through the whole entire city. And they didn't come out until about late June, early July. And they didn't, start to flourish. Now, a lot of them have bounced back since then because they've had to take a deep pruning to get them, pruned back a little bit and then have them flourish out with the new growth. But this is the kind of things that we're seeing in the horticulture field. And we've actually, with our suppliers that, sell us our herbicides, pesticides and stuff like that, we kind of had to scratch our head because what happens is when you have, 500-600 customers like we do, and they start asking questions like, what did you do to, hurt my crop? Yeah. Why is my tree not growing? Why is my roses not flourishing? We have to really, I was like, we didn't do anything. We'll go back. We'll check our MSDS sheets. We'll make sure that our tank mixes were perfect. We'll bring in a consultant and make sure that this is, tried and true with what we have. And we have to record everything with the Department of Horticulture. So WSDA and ISDA. Those are places that we're licensed with to spray these pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. So we keep really meticulous records, air temperature, humidities, how much, how many ounces per hundreds of gallons or per gallon of water that we're using as a carrier to deliver these chemicals onto these sites. And what we've had to do is just get those conversations going with our suppliers. Is like, when are we going to address the weather modification issue as part of a reason as to why we're seeing these failures in our ornamental landscapes? Because it's not working, those conversations that we're having with our customers anymore. And we're having to really look like a nut job by saying, we got to start considering this. And I've had to start having those conversations with a lot of my clients. I won't say a lot, but there's a few that have, just have had these really unique one-off kind of things that have happened in their landscapes. And I went to great lengths to researching, why is that? Yeah. What's going on? And I can't find any resolve other than we're just having these other elements out of the sky that's causing root weld off, or some kind of a, where the pores of the plant aren't able to open up and function and receive that photosynthesis or the dew in the morning and stuff like that. So
it seems to me, Lyle, like we've talked to that either you or people that have actually investigated and taken samples of what's on our trees or what's on these plants. Is that correct? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And that's the path that I think a lot of us horticulture guys are having to go down now. It's not myself that personally that did that, or my company that did that. But we are seeing farmers now test their soils. And I have some friends that are out in the Valley Ford area, Freeman area, and they've suffered some low bushel rates in their crops. And they've really been trying to figure out what's going on. And they see the lines in the sky just as you and I do. And they did do some soil testing out there. I'm not going to share their names because I don't have their permission to do that. But they did send it to WSU. They did do a soil sample test on it, and it came back in high quantities of aluminum, strontium, and barium. Wow. And that was resting in their soil. Now, some people will say, well, that's because of the glyphosates that you're spraying on your property. Well, we don't spray a lot of glyphosates on our property, they would say, so what you've seen over the years is people like Monsanto have developed these seeds now that can withstand aluminum, high quantities of aluminum, and still grow. So they've genetically modified the seeds so that they do perform. So it's not really a natural wheat anymore. What you're getting is a genetically modified wheat that can withstand the elements of the aluminum, barium, strontium being delivered out of those stratospheric aerosol injections that are just landing on all of our farmlands and crops.
Plus you have failure of plants to produce or bloom or, do the job that they used to do. You have agriculture that's seeing impact. And not, having the bushel rate that they used to, or having to make adjustments with the seeds they choose. We also have seen these massive fires. And I know, in fact, one day when you and I were talking about doing vice chair and chair, that day was the day that the fire started out in Medical Lake and started in Elk. And that's you were out there helping fight that fire in Elk. And so talk a little bit about also the impact to these fires, because we've had such bad fires that, again, what is going on? I mean, we didn't used to have that damaging of fires. So talk about that.
So I'll preface it with this part of the conversation. None of our weather we are seeing today, I believe, is natural. It is all being genetically modified, every ounce of it. So somebody might say, well, no, they get a cloud base from the ocean and that. It's like, well, have you seen the cloud brightening program that they run over there at OSU, that they run offshores along our Pacific coastline? Do you know what the U.S. Navy is doing? Do you know what the U.S. Air Force is doing? Because there's all programs that I can lean on a bunch of different documents that they have where they talk about these programs being conducted on a daily basis. And if you don't want to believe it from there, I can show you hundreds of patents that declare exactly what I'm saying to be true. And somebody say, well, because I've heard people say, well, just because it's a patent doesn't mean it's in effect. Okay, look, knucklehead, at a certain point, we've got to start looking at this, with a little more common sense. If I'm seeing these reactions and I got a patent that lines up with that reaction, we can only assume, there you go. You got all the patents there. Scroll down that for me real quick, MJ. So just look at
So
how many.
the website is geoengineeringwatch.org.
Yeah, Dane Wigington has this on his website. So if anybody wants, he's a wealth of knowledge. He's been studying this longer than I have, but he has all of the US patents that are, yeah, you can look at it. Just kind of and keep going. You can see all the way back to the 1800s. But as you go,
1891, yeah, 1891.
This is not a new technology. I mean, we can go like this is showing all the way back to the 1800s, where our governments have tried to, control the weather to some degree. But look at like this one right here. Stop right there. Artificial production of fog. Do you guys remember last year how all across the East Coast in through Florida, they had that fog that they said it just came out of nowhere. It's being persistent. I've got an immediate headache. I've got this smell in the air that doesn't make sense. They thought some kind of hazardous chemical company just went up in flames. And not only here, but over in like Dublin, over in, Europe, different places of Spain. It was all happening pretty much simultaneously across the entire world. And this isn't isolated just to the United States or the inland Northwest here. This is a global effort, right, of all these patents. And so
let's talk about this. Hold on here for a sec before you move on, because this is actually very relevant right now as we look out at this fog. When you're talking about the fog in Florida, I was down there at the time. And so about almost exactly a year to the date, I was down there, and they had this fog that's very persistent. And one day I was there, and it smelled metallic. And I was talking to a friend of mine just yesterday about this that lives in North Spokane. And we were talking about the fog, I guess, because it's cold and, icky right now and gray here in the Spokane area. I said, hey, she's up north, 9 Mile area. And I said, do you have the fog? She goes, oh, yeah. She goes, it was so weird because, man, the other day I like, it had a smell to it. And nobody was burning at that time around them. And so I told her about this Florida thing. So it's amazing that you bring that up, because if you're smelling something weird, there was another group that I follow on Facebook where a mom was saying, I'm not crazy, right? But my kids are sick and everything since this fog has been around. I'm not saying it's connected. I'm not saying it's correlated, but there are some synergistic effects happening here. And are they, do these dots connect? And gosh, here's this patent back from, what is the date on that? 1933.
1933. Yeah. I mean, you can actually go back to Nikola Tesla and just look at some of his stuff that he was researching way back when, and how he was able to create lightning and different things like that. I believe so. Somebody might want to know, well, what are the agencies that are conducting these exercises, right? And so through my studies and what I found after looking at it, you've got people like DARPA, and a lot of people don't understand who DARPA is. It's an acronym, right? And DARPA is probably the deepest layer of our military intelligence and development and weaponry that we have in the United States. And a lot of it's based out of Area 51, where we think all the UFOs and aliens are at. But it is DARPA that is the mastermind, architect, and designer of these programs. And let me find I'll go through this. So you got DARPA. So who's running these programs? It's the U.S. government and private contractors. Let's start right there. DARPA is the architect and the creator. The U.S. Air Force, Navy, Space Force, the U.S. Army, Coast Guard, all run apparatuses and operations.
Raytheon. Can you see my screen that I'm showing right now?
I can. Okay. So let me talk about that here in a second, right after I get through this. Raytheon, RXT, and Northrop Grumman and Sentinel run the programs. Okay. So this is a private entity now, two different private entities. They run the program. Okay. And then you've got NOAA and the Weather Service centers, and they are doing all the basically on the ground investigations and forecasting to the public. So you kind of see how they have this built out. So you have the US government and private contractors overall. Then you have DARPA, who designs and builds a lot of these programs. You have our military, special units of our military. It's not like it's been announced to the whole, unit, all the different people in the US Air Force. They don't all know what's going on. This is, just special, operations that are ran through these different portions of our US military. So you have the US Air Force, Navy, Space Force, US Army, Coast Guard that are running the apparatuses. And then you have Raytheon, RXT, and Grumman, Northrop, and Sentinel running the programs. They send it down the line to NOAA and the Weather Service and said, this is what's going to be modeled out. Go check it out, make sure verify this, and then send it out to all the meteorologists. And that's kind of how they run this program globally. What you're looking at right here, this is a 2009, I believe it's 52 pages, 52-page report from the US Air Force describing back in 2009, the head of the US Air Force came out and said, this is how we are going to control the weather to its entirety in 2025. Scroll through that if you feel like you're bored and don't have nothing to do and read, but it will go all the way through the contents, the index, all of that stuff. It'll give you illustrations of how they do it. So look at right there, MJ, you see you got fog right there. Go to chapter number 4, page 13. You got fog.
There we go.
Right? So it's going to talk to you about how they seed the fog, how they develop the fog, how they move the fog. And I want to remind our listeners, one of the things that we had just this last year, I think they're still experiencing it, but all of Central California has had, it was like a 400-mile swath of fog, heavy fog, all the way through the valley of Central California, all the way from northern Los Angeles, so Bakersfield, all the way up to Chico, California. They've had this big band of fog there. I don't know if it's lifted or not, but it's been ongoing for about 2 months now, if it's still going on.
Wow.
And in these fogs, that is what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of people complain about smells, respiratory issues, and sicknesses, dizziness, and extreme headaches. That's the pattern that a lot of people are saying that they're experiencing when those fogs set in. And so that's just one of many reports I could pull from the official government websites. So back when I was starting to investigate this, I'll kind of back up just a little bit. And I was just really puzzled in 2006, like, what is going on? How can I find information on this? Remember, AI didn't exist. So the internet was actually very sparse with what it had back then. But then I found Dane Wigington, and Dane Wigington, the history on him is he's a scientist that does solar panel installs into homes and was trying to go to that kind of more of that green model for Northern California. And so he was really in that industry, and he put them all on his house. He has this piece of property that's out in the middle of nowhere below Shasta. And he just wasn't getting the results that he was supposed to be getting from his solar panels. He's like, what is going on? Well, he noticed the trails going through the sky. And so he went to a lot of his city council boards, the county commissioners. He went to the legislators, to the governor. This guy went to the nines of bringing in all kinds of expert witnesses. He now, if you go to his website, geoengineeringwatch.com, .org. Sorry, thank you. .org. You'll see just a whole lineup of information, and up on the top bar, you'll see, what do you want to learn about? Do you want to learn about the patents? Do you want to learn about what HARP is? Do you want to learn about what stratospheric aerosol injection is? And he's just got a whole slew of information, and he's actually paid real scientists to come in and do these studies. So it's just not off the top of his head or just speculation. And he's a wealth of knowledge that way. So I'd encourage anybody to go take a look at that. But I would start looking at Dane Wigington. I was like, okay, well, that's one person's point of view. I want to expand on this. One thing in business, you get real good reading contracts. It's just what you have to do when you get your jobs. You have to read through their procurement packets that they send you. They're usually 200-300 pages long, and you got to find the parts that apply to you and how you're going to get paid, and what your expectations of your scope of work is going to be. So what I did is I said, well, you know what, I'm going to go to the government websites, and I'm going to look at what they're doing program wise, and I'm going to try to find some of these things that would kind of describe weather modification and see if there's a real truth behind it. Well, it went pretty deep. From there I could go in and it was pretty public. You could just find it. You just kind of had to type in little keywords and find it, and then be patient enough to read through some of the lengthiness of those documents, because some of them are really, really stinking long. And it would take you into treaties. It would take you into the UN and what they're doing, globally. And it would take you into how our senators and representatives are passing certain legislation to allow for these programs to be built and devised through the Department of Defense. And then you could get into the budgets, and where the budgets in the Department of Defense, they're going to these one-off little programs. And then you kind of investigate, well, what are these one-off little programs? You really start to get into the weeds of it, and it gets really lengthy. We could go on probably for 2 days straight. Your audience would get bored and they would go away real fast if we talked about everything, but we'll just kind of touch on a little bit. Do me a favor, MJ. You and I talked about the treaty that the US and Canada has. Do you have that you can share with our audience?
Yep. Let me find that again. Whoops. Hold on. Remove that.
And I think it's important that the audience see this, because what this is the US, after back in the late 70s, I don't remember the date, it might be 1977, the UN said, hey, there's some real concerns about weather modification and what that's going to do to other countries' climates, and how they're going to be able to do, support life with agriculture, and what that's going to do to droughts, and how they're going to receive their water. So there was a treaty in the UN to end most of those programs. Well, what a lot of people don't understand is adjoining countries or adjacent countries that wanted to still engage in weather modification were able to do so, provided they signed a treaty with one another, letting the other country be in agreement that there could be some kind of catastrophic event from the other country performing these duties. And so you'll find, when you pull that up, you'll look, and we have one with the United States and Canada. And so I guess anybody that's kind of speculating, is that the treaty right there? There you go. 1975, Canada and the U.S. treaty. And the audience, they can read through that. And how did you find that, MJ? Because you're the one that actually found that one.
Yeah, I heard about it on a podcast I was listening to, and that was the first time I had become aware of stuff from our past going back to the 1970s. I didn't know at the time, the patents go back as far as they do. I mean, this is still kind of new for me. And so I just started researching it, and I found that here's let's see here. I think I've got another slide here. So it just shows it right here. Here's the Weather Modification Exchange of Information, 1975. It was signed in 1975 with Canada and North America. And you just research it. It's there for everyone to see.
Yeah, so we're thinking that weather modification, just because we see the lines in the sky, they're a little more prominent now, a little more obvious. There's no denying it. We've heard, the talk from Bill Gates with solar radiation management, SRM, and then Europe and how they've, incorporated that. Same thing with Australia. Australia's also incorporated that over there, and they're trying to, their cover story, the feel-good story is we're trying to block the sun's rays from coming down to the, all the way down to the surface, right? And so they think they're going to cool the planet by being able to do that. Well, the trade-off to that is you're going to decimate your plant life. You're going to decimate the way people's health are moving forward, because we need that photosynthesis and sunlight in order to survive. We have to have that. And when
Let's talk about bees. Let's talk about insects. I mean, what's happening to our bees?
Our bee population is being decimated right now. I mean, it's horrible. And if we do not have a bee population, you will not get fruits and vegetables. You will not have cross-pollinating going on. It will be a food shortage like nobody's ever seen before. And yes, the bees are being taken out. It's after numerous studies by multiple scientists, they actually think it's the graphene that they're spraying in the air that's causing the sensories to go out into the bees. So much like the plant life, where we're seeing that ornamental plant life just all of a sudden just flash die. The bees, they have their little sensories, right? Their little antennas are going a million miles a minute as they're flying. They're fluttering their wings. They got their feet and all that. Well, the graphene apparently is getting in there and poisoning them and, well, kind of closing those pores off so they can't function. And so then it's just annihilating honeybee population after honeybee population. And even the wasps, things like yellow jackets and stuff like that, they're all being, affected by this.
Yeah. And it's not just honeybees. My dad, I grew up on the farm in southern Idaho, and his main crop was alfalfa seed. And they actually we'd have buildings, little, small, not barns, but little buildings or even little trailers, makeshift little shed that you put bee cutter. They were bee cutter hives and bee cutter boards. I mean, I lived around all that all my whole life, or all my growing up. Right. And so you have bee cutter bees that they needed to pollinate the alfalfa seed to produce the alfalfa seed, right? Yeah. So you think about anything that has a flower, apples, right? I mean, it's so many things, and people don't understand, right? That connection. So many of us are so far removed from the origins of how all this work.
Right.
It's not just honey.
Right. No. Excuse me. And aluminum has a big effect on that too. So when you're doing all of those aluminum nanoparticulates, that is also having a huge adverse effect on the honeybee population right now. So I don't know what the official death toll is on the honeybees, but last number I heard, we're down to about 30% of the population left. And so beekeepers, if there's any out there, they can jump in and maybe validate some of that, but that's just what I've been hearing. Maybe a little bit of that's just alarmist behavior, with people, saying, oh, this is all we're seeing. But I think it's pretty noticeable at this point. I can tell you from a horticultural standpoint, honeybees have almost been non-existent. I see wasps, from time to time, but this year I have not seen a lot in the way of the bee population. And usually, like when we're out pruning or shaping shrubs, my guys always have to take that bee spray with them because they're shaping shrubs. It's hot and they just get attacked, and so they have to kind of find these nests. We actually didn't have hardly any of that this year. We had maybe one or two, but not much. But we do a lot of shaping and pruning, and we just didn't find the nests this year. And so that was a little bit of an anomaly for us. We're like, wow, there must be something to that, declining bee population that we're hearing about from other resources at this point.
Let's talk about this bill. Let's get into this bill a little bit. Yeah. Sure. And what I want to share too, because you touched on this earlier. I don't know if I showed it, but let me share this screen with you. I have to press a couple buttons here, so I got to remember to share it. Get the screen and then actually share it onto our screen. But there's 7 other states right now that have already passed similar bills to this House Bill 2222. It's already passed. So this is not, we are not talking conspiracy theory here. No. This is not tinfoil hat stuff. This is passed legislation in Tennessee, Florida, New Jersey, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Texas, and is that Vermont? Yep. And Vermont. So that has already happened. And then there's how many other states did you say are considering it? Or
total right now, with the ones that have passed and the ones that are looking to pass, kind of like what we're trying to do with HB2222, is I think the number's sitting right around 31. I think we make 32. So that's huge. That's a majority of our states coming together. with citizen concern and legislative concern and Senate concern, saying this has got to stop. It's one of the reasons why, you know, I was excited about the Trump administration and Make America Healthy Again. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., boy, that was my boy. I really wanted him to come in here. You know, yours was for vaccine points, and I'm in agreement with you on that. Mine was for weather modification. I was like, I can't wait for him to come in here and just end this nonsense. This is ridiculous.
I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there.
So. I really hope so. And you have people like Governor Ron DeSantis who are actually out there. And look at how he presented his bill. He actually called it back and said, it's not strong enough, right? So ours, the committee that actually took the initial draft, they took the Florida bill and modeled it after the Florida bill. And then we went in and strengthened some of the language to include certain things. Because what we don't want to happen here is for them to say, well, you don't, as the state of Washington, own the skies above 2,000 feet. That's all federal airspace, right? So we have every right to do whatever we want as the federal government in that airspace. And whatever happens, you know, you're just a bystander, a byproduct of what happens from that. We went in here to the language, and I don't know if we can find that language real quick where it's at there, MJ, but it goes into talking about land-based apparatuses. It talks about drone technology, laser technology, RF waving technologies, everything that you would find below that 2,000-foot deck. And so, and what we're trying to do, and a lot of people probably don't realize this, but the state of Washington, stay right there for just a second, MJ. Go back to the top where we have the RCW and the other whack right there. So we got the RCWs right there. See what that's talking about? That means we already have, so 43.27A.190 and 70A.15.1010 allows for private contractors to do weather modification through the forms of cloud seeding. And they can do that here in the state of Washington. That is perfectly legal. The legislator did pass that a while ago to make that legal to happen. So
it's
what
right
our
here. It's right here in the RCWs.
There you go.
Right. This is the bills. This is the state.
Does it have a birth date on that by any chance?
Sometimes you have to go, effective date 1973.
There you go. So right when the EPA was going through it and we had the UN talking about weather modification, our legislators went ahead and most of the Western states have something similar to this, and they allow it, and they say it's for drought control, right? But it goes deeper and it goes further than that. So let's just not get hung up on the cloud seeding. So if we remember all of the flooding that happened in Texas this last summer, right? And then you had that 25-year-old CEO from Rainmaker Industries, Augustus, come out, and he was talking about how, well, we cloud seed and we use drone technology to cloud seed, but we only put 70 grams of silver iodide. And so just for anybody to put that into context, what 70 grams looks like, that's like 5 Skittle candies, okay? That's not what we're talking about here. All of the lines in the sky, that's the base that they lay out so that the RF waving, the laser, and all of the aerosol injections thereafter through cloud seeding can come in and basically exacerbate that and make that more of a powerful, violent storm, producing ungodly amounts of precipitation, rather in the form of rain or snow or the winds. And the same thing. So like when we do all this spraying, what a lot of people don't realize is those elements that they're using, those nanoparticulates, they're like a desiccant. So what a desiccant does in the land of herbicide, pesticide applications is it basically dries out your vegetation. Okay. So if you go outside let's just say it's a winter day and the sun's out, and then have you noticed lately how when you go outside and the sun's out, how intense that sun just feels like it's just kind of hitting you? Well, all the metals that are in the air, they're just kind of being persistent. They're floating in the atmosphere right there. And so when the sunbeams come through it, it's like a magnifying glass. It's like if you were to take a magnifying glass and put it on an anthill. So you don't have to have an 80-degree day to get a sunburn. You can have a 60-degree day and get a sunburn and go, wow, I just got zapped by the sun. That's part of the reasons, or part of the things that happen through all of this massive amount of aerosol injections that are happening right now.
Yeah.
Kind of come back
a little glitchy. I don't know if it's me or you, Lyle, but
I don't have anything on my side, MJ. So in our bill though.
Okay, it must be me. I must be clicking too much.
Can you hear me okay?
What's that?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So in our bill, HB2222, which we do need people to go to the committee and encourage them to give us a hearing on that. So this is very important. If you wake up in the morning, you see those lines in the sky and it's bugging you and you're just like angry when you get to work or wherever you're going because of those lines in the sky, I need you to call this committee and let them know to hear this. We need a hearing, and we'll present evidence to them as to why they need to go ahead and end this. And we want a complete ending of all, absolutely all, capitalize ALL, all weather modification programs. And if the federal government still wants to spray out on the coastlines, we have language in our bill that says it cannot come across our atmosphere and affect our farmlands, our people, you know, our environment here within our boundaries of our state. So that's the strength of that language that we're presenting. And it's very important that, you know, if people, do we have a link that people can maybe look for that? I know you and I both posted it on Facebook, but it's, what is it, 15 pages long, almost 15 pages? Or no, I'm sorry.
The bill?
6, isn't it? The bill, yeah.
Yeah, let me pull it up again. I've had a few things open, so let me find it. But yeah, you can go to ledge.wa.gov and then type in just 2222. It's a great number, 2222. And then you can pull it up and you can read that bill for yourself. Again, ledge.wa.gov. I've posted it in some other links that I've posted, and Lyle, you know, and we'll post it again in the meeting notes for you to follow. But like Lyle said, and how it works in the legislature is getting a bill is not good enough. You've got to get a hearing for that bill. And because the Republicans are in the minority in the Washington state legislature right now, it is challenging for a Republican sponsored bill to get a hearing. And right now we only have Rob Chase, thankfully. Thank you, Rob, Representative Rob Chase, as a sponsor. We'd love to get other legislators to sponsor this bill. And then this is a call to action. We need every Washingtonian to go on there, and I'll show you here in just 1 second how to find that, but we'll also list the committee chair, vice chair, and ranking members that you can email. So yes, you want to call and email your legislators, but the people on the committee are the ones that determine what bill gets heard. So we want a hearing. At least we want a hearing, and there needs to be public pressure on the leadership of this committee to get that hearing. They would love for us to just go away, I'm sure, and not hear this. But this is a bipartisan issue. This should not be a conservative issue. I mean, this is about our environment. You've heard Lyle spell it out so well. I mean, it's affecting our vegetation, it's affecting our trees, it's affecting our fires, it's affecting our animals, it's affecting you and me, our people, and sickness. It's affecting our bees, our food supply, and, you know, let alone it's blocking our sun. We're not getting sunlight is good. You know, despite what people have told you in the past, if you don't know that yet, do some research. Sunlight is good for you. Every living organism needs sunlight, like just about, I think. Maybe there's a few in the deep, deep oceans that don't, but I don't know. Lyle, you know more of that than I do.
Well, no, but look at the hospital. Look at the hospitals back in the day when everybody got sick. They would take them outside and sit in the sunlight for, you know, to help cure that virus that was out there. The sun does a lot for us as humanity goes. And the same thing with our insect population, and the same thing for our plant life as well. And I want to add this, MJ, after talking to Rob Chase, he said actually after he put that bill into the legislator there, he had a couple Democrats say that they would like to look at that. They were excited to look at that. So you're very right about this being a nonpartisan issue. This affects us all. This affects each one of our families. I don't care what side of the political aisle you sit on. This is definitely you, me, and everybody else, and the fence post that it includes when we're being affected by these, stratospheric aerosol injections and the graphenes and the aluminums, and, to just a high level. It's every day almost. I mean, it's almost every day we're getting sprayed. It's like we're a bunch of bugs underneath here. I don't even spray insects that much on our trees, to try to help offset, some kind of an aggressive infestation of insect. We have to do biological methods on that help offset, chemicals versus kind of more of that, culture control that we're going to use, that biological culture control that we're going to use. And we don't spray our trees that much, but look at how much we're getting sprayed around here, right? With those jets. Right. It's just ridiculous. And it's got to stop.
Here's the ledge.wa.gov. Again, that's the main website for the legislature. And then you can put in House Bill 2222 and it will pull up this page. So you can send a comment to your legislators. That will just go to your personal legislators. You can get email notifications on this bill. But follow along here with me. If there's any videos, you can click on that. I don't think there's any videos yet because it doesn't have a hearing. So it was referred to the House. Again, this is a House bill. So the House Chamber Committee of Environment and Energy. So that's where it is. And that's where you need to find who those people are. I'll show you how to do that here in 1 second. Perfect. You can click on this. This is where you get the original bill and you can read it for yourself, or you can, a lot of us have learned, just for time saving, you can put it into your AI to help highlight the main parts of it and then refer, like you said. I don't think it's not a very long bill. So if we go to, if you're not sure who your committee members are, this is where it gets a little, you need to know how to do this. Is you can go, let's see here to, and what did I say? Environment.
Yeah. Environment and, crud. What is it?
Yep. So we'll go, let's see here, Chamber Committee. So we'll go Environment and Energy, and we'll click on that. I just did a committee schedules, agendas, and documents, and we'll search on when they meet. If you click on just the committee, you can search that committee. You can go to their page. Here's the committee page and members and staff. It's got 21 members. Here's the chair. Here's the vice chair, the ranking member, who's Mary Dye, who is from the 9th, just down south of us, not very far.
Yep.
And the assistant ranking man.
Who's a farmer.
Who's a farmer, right? Mary Dye, yes. And so we want to, advocate with them, call their office, email their office, and pressure, put the pressure on, advocate for them to give a hearing to this bill. And if you live in different regions, which I'm sure many of you do, talk to your legislators, ask them, we want a hearing on this bill. We want this to be heard. We want to see this go past, and if there's some refining things we can do that with amendments, but we need to get a hearing on this. So that's how you do that. Here's their numbers right there. All of the legislators too, just so you know, their emails are their first name, period, their last name at ledge.wa.gov. Every single one of them. So that's an easy way to email them as well. But here's all the members that are on that committee. I don't think Rob is on that committee.
I don't think so.
Hunter Abel, that's in the 7th. That's on that committee. Mary Dye, obviously. Perfect. Yeah. Let's see here. So there's a lot of great representatives. Alex Ybarra, good friend of mine, he's on that committee. So we want to hear that.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, MJ, if any of the listeners here had any kind of feedback on the bill that we're presenting, maybe they had some ideas that we should add to that. Would they be able to just kind of go through UnBolted and type that in, or how would they be able to maybe get that information back to us?
Yeah, you can absolutely go to, well, comment wherever you're seeing this on. So I'm broadcasting this live on Facebook and on X. And I believe on Facebook, you're tagged as well, Lyle. If not, we'll do that in the comments. And then we can also, we'll go in and share these contacts with you and the contact information under there. So it's easy for you to find. There's some posts that both Lyle and I have done recently where you can find those contacts. They're already out there, and we made it simple for you to be able to click on that. There, because it doesn't have a hearing, you can't sign in pro or con yet. So right now, the call to action is to contact these members of this committee, and especially the leadership, the four main people that we just showed, to get a hearing, and then contact your personal representatives as well and ask for that. And then let's see here. I think I lost my trail. Oh yeah, and then we'll just post it in the contact, and you can reach out to Lyle or me through through that. So we're broadcasting live on Facebook, on X, on YouTube under UnBolted is also where it is. So you could comment under there, or on my Rumble channel, which is at MJ Life is Good. And that's where you can always find these broadcasts that I do. Real quick, I wanted to, so that's the information about the bill. There's kind of another level of understanding that I've gotten lately, Lyle, and I think this is really interesting because I've been watching it for a while, especially like these big storms that you were talking about, these 1,000-year storms, weather events that we've had a lot of lately. I think I really got interested in this as well, dove deeper into this with Hurricane Helene and what happened, the devastation that happened in the Asheville and North Carolina area. And that's when I first started seeing these radar things. So you have the spraying that happens, and please look up, okay, if anybody of you has seen this movie on Netflix that says don't look up. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a spoof because you need to look up and you need to pay attention. And yes, we're nerdy, we're wonky. We have a group of us that sit there and share the skies, especially in the mornings, it seems like, with each other, saying, did you see this? And we've seen the patterns too, where you have a line in the sky being made, this chemtrail that's being dropped, whether, whatever chemicals, and then it curves. What the heck is that? What are they doing? And there's video also, we can show that here, of airplanes turning it off or turning it on. Well, that's not a contrail. That's not how a contrail works. It doesn't just go on and off. It can't, there's not a switch, but there's obviously a switch happening with that. So just start paying attention. If you don't believe us, just start paying attention and start paying attention to what happens with the weather. You'll see these lines in the sky. And then, like Lyle was saying earlier, all of a sudden it starts to change. But there's something else also at play here. And it is these radars that are working in. And so I think I'll play this video right now to help explain that. Lyle, does that work?
Yeah, sounds good.
Whoop! I lost you for a second. Does that work?
Okay,
let me play it.
Do you have any sound to that, MJ?
Can you not hear that?
I can't hear it on my end, no.
Okay, let's try it again. I think my computer's being a little glitchy. Let me see if I can turn some of this other stuff off real quick and help our thing out.
That's an important video.
Hold for processing.
Okay.
All right. So you see the video? Okay, I'm going to try playing it again. I know it's kind of soft. Let me see if I can hold on real quick. And let me see if I can turn up the volume. I don't see where I can turn it up. Okay, here we go. Let's give it a shot. So I'm going to play this video again, and I will try to share this video as well on my social media channels. Here we go.
I still can't hear it. No sound. MJ, when you get to those lines, let's see if we can pause it. So
let's pause right here just for a second, since you guys can't hear it. What this is showing is these, what are they called again, Lyle?
Well, we have RF towers. We got two things going on here. We got RF towers, and then we have a program called HARP. And a lot of people, HARP again is another government acronym. It's High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Okay, so High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. That is what HARP is. Now, a lot of people say, well, the one in that know about it always talk about the one in Alaska. And they kind of talk about it in the essence like it's the only one that's out there. That is not true. We have HARPs all across the entire world. Russia has one. There's one in Puerto Rico. There's one, I think, in Hawaii. There's two in Alaska. It sounds like I'm pretty sure we built one over in Iraq. It's kind of like what the Iranians are complaining about right now, where they're saying that they're being dried out and droughted over there. That would be a reflection of what HARP does. And so I'll just kind of go through HARP because it's actually probably the key instrument that helps feed all these other programs and makes them work. So you have the RF waving, which is true on the ground-based land apparatuses that you see throughout the United States, such as those big old cell phone towers or little burners in the forest and whatnot have you. But we have different atmospheres. So the troposphere and stratosphere is where our weather kind of sits. So the troposphere is about 11 to 12 miles. The stratosphere is anywhere from 4 to, hold on one second here. The stratosphere is anywhere from 4 to 12 miles up to 31 miles into the atmosphere. And then you have the mesosphere. That one's 31 miles to 53 miles. And then you have from there, you have the thermosphere or the ionosphere. It's basically kind of the same thing. The ionosphere is where HARP really has the biggest cause and effect. So when the military came out with, and it was I believe the Air Force started it, when they built the first ionosphere heater, a lot of people were that's where the conspiracy started, saying, hey, this is to control weather. They're saying, no, it's to communicate into outer space. We're just trying to pick up other radio waves and other frequencies. Well, we've since learned that that's not true. So if you have these different layers, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different layers. And if we have the troposphere and the stratosphere where our weather's at, kind of in between there somewhere, and then you have the mesosphere, and then you have the thermosphere and ionosphere kind of in these areas, what happens is HARP with their array antennas shoot up into the ionosphere, it bounces back down, and it pushes the stratosphere or the troposphere, therefore controlling the high pressure and low pressure systems. So they, in essence, steer these storms is what happens. So anybody that knows, a storm is usually generated by a low pressure system. And when you have a high pressure system, it either pushes it up and out, or it pulls it in and pushes it another direction. So they've learned how to manipulate that, and they have multiple HARPs working in unison. We even have some HARP units that are mounted to government ships and the Navy runs. A lot of people don't know that. They've since retired the one just a little outside of Fairbanks, and they've given it over to the Alaska University to do studies there. So they don't really use that ionosphere heater much, but they still use it from time to time. So when we're seeing all these auroras, and you've seen how active our sky was with auroras this year with Aurora Borealis and stuff like that, it's right in the name of HARP, right? Yeah. They're manipulating those auroras. And so what they're doing is they're energizing our atmospheres so that all of these nanoparticulates basically get excited and move around, and it can help them control those layers. So they lay down the base layer with the stratospheric aerosol injections. HARP goes up into the ionosphere and comes back down into our stratosphere, troposphere, and it heats those atmospheres up, and it allows them to manipulate those storms, the high pressure, low pressure systems. Gets a little complicated. There's a science behind it, and you really got to kind of read it and kind of, study it for a little while to fully grasp what I'm talking about. It sounds like sci-fi, but I'm telling you, it's actually simple technologies that are utilized to make weather. It's really not that complicated when you look at the science of it on how they're doing this, because they're doing a bunch of little, and when I say nanoparticulates, this is where DARPA comes in. DARPA is the pioneer at nanotechnologies, everything from what we're seeing in our vaccines to everything that we're breathing in the air. And so if you have a little speck the size of this pin right here, on the tip of that pin, you probably have 100 different nanoparticulates that would fit in the tip of that pin right there, right? So you won't even see them. You breathe them in, you inhale them, they go into you ingest them into your system, they stay in your lungs. They're persistent. They don't just dissolve and go away. And that's why we're getting real concerned with all the different metals that we're ingesting and whatnot. But HARP is what controls, and yes, I am 100% saying we steer hurricanes. Okay.
Yeah.
That was being done back in the 1950s. Okay. So
let's look at this video a little bit, and hopefully I reset it. Let me know if you can hear it this time.
Okay.
Oop.
There are about 170 of these scattered across the country, but these.
So right here, did you hear that? 170 of these, and this is not the HARPs. This is not what you're talking about. This is those are
Doppler towers, and I believe it was under the Obama administration where they actually went through and remodeled and upfitted all of our NEXRAD radars. And so since I think 2009, 2010, those have been updated and they have this new technology in them.
Yeah. So those are 170 in our country,
and I'm going to show you why.
And can you hear this now?
This is data from each individual radar base compiled as a mosaic. We're looking at a clip from. This is the data from each individual.
I just want to stop it there because this is about right where we are, and we have one right out here in Airway Heights.
We have a few of them. Yes.
Right here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, we do. So
there's one in Pendleton.
Interesting.
Yep, you have one in Pendleton.
But I mean, right here where we are, that would probably be about Pendleton, right about there. So let's watch this, how these turning on whatever they're doing. I don't know if it's sound technology. Do you know, Lyle, on this?
It's all ran through a network system that Raytheon has assembled.
Okay. So let's watch this, how this affects. Okay, and as these towers turn on, as this system persists, I'm just going to rewind it just a little bit again so you can kind of watch this.
These 8 are of particular interest, and I'm going to show you why. This is the data from each individual radar base compiled as a mosaic. We're looking at a clip from a time lapse I took in February of 2025, showing about 12 hours of radar data. And as you can see, there are all kinds of wild-looking microwave beams firing off of the radar bases, which the National Weather Service will tell you doesn't mean anything at all. But we trace out the beams, which you can see me doing here from the radar bases which most often produce them, we find a grid is revealed. Along this grid, spirals repeatedly occur in the same locations like a piece of 1990s computer software. It's the very definition of the difference between natural and man-made. Random and unpredictable weather on planet Earth cannot possibly occur with this regularity and in the same locations without human intervention. If it were this simple to predict the weather, you would have learned about it in kindergarten. What you are looking at here are clouds conforming to Euclidean geometry not found in nature. Do with that information what you will.
Yeah.
Pretty fascinating stuff. And so my understanding of this is that, you have this spraying happening where you have these particles being dropped into the atmosphere, into our skies. And then you have this additional radar technology and HARP that can use those particles to manipulate what is happening. Is that so? You kind of got the layers of activity. It's not just the spraying of skies. It's also these radars that are affecting what is, the controlling and the maneuvering of these particles. So it's both. What
It is.
onto it?
No, it is both. And I don't know if you remember a Facebook post I put out this last summer. We had a storm tracking, and it wasn't really much. And then it went up through Colville, and it turned into an intense thunderstorm and downpour of rain. And I was able to capture for a split second the laser that shot from that tower into the storm, causing it to intensify. And so I had that on my Facebook and I circled it and kind of showed that just like we saw in this last video, those little lines that were just kind of shooting across the sky. If anybody wants to know what kind of laser technologies we have, go to the DARPA website. They love to brag about it. Go to the Navy, go to the Air Force, and look at any of their little informations on laser technologies. You'll see that we're far more advanced than most people actually really understand and appreciate. We actually have a very in-depth, very technological laser system adapted into our military apparatuses right now. And I actually, because I seen it come from this area, it was over by Wilbur and Creston that I saw it shoot out. And so I took a drive and I was like, okay, well, I want to just go see and verify that there was actually a tower there, or was it done from some other thing, or was it a glitch, right? And so I actually went out there, and lo and behold, exactly from where I had that pinned on my map, there was a group of towers sitting up in Creston right there on a hill right above a farmer's field, and the gates were all locked. You couldn't get up there because I was trying to drive up to the towers to go see what kind of towers they were. Now, there were cell phone towers there, and I've got a great picture of it, but there's a whole grouping of towers that definitely potentially had that laser technology attached to it that could do that. And if you actually want to look at a CBS report that was done, I think back in 2012, there's a scientist that talks to one of the reporters there, how they use lasers to invoke lightning or intensify rain and precipitation. So he was very open on CBS, the MSM. So, and he was just letting everybody know we can do this, right? Oh, it's in experimental phases. No, it's not. If they're saying it, we already have it fully adapted to any one of our programs that the military is running. So once we hear about it, it's only because they want us to hear about it, right? So, and that's how our military works. And they just slowly give us these little breadcrumb trails that let us kind of, if we want to put our due diligence of research, you can actually take those breadcrumbs and you can actually find the facts pretty easy. So, right. Yes, we can steer hurricanes. Yes, we can create fires and decimate entire climates. We can drought out entire countries. We can do a deluge of rain that just floods entire communities like what we saw in Texas. We can do that. We can sit there and create typhoons and tornadoes, and we can create like that snowstorm that nobody forecasted just a couple days ago, right? How many of you woke up with 6 inches to 8 inches on the ground? Yeah. Where'd that come from? Right? Where did that come from? So,
and let's talk about this. Aren't the weather people, meteorologists, like sworn to secrecy or something on this, Lyle?
Yeah, it's a known fact that they actually have a gag order, that they're not allowed to talk about it. There's only, whatever they're given from whatever source. I want to say it's probably going to be, Raytheon, because Raytheon, I think it was signed through NOAA. NOAA, and they are the ones that sign the contracts with most of the weather personalities, and they say this is what you can report on, and this is what we're going to be able to divulge. Now, if you go through a lot, and I love to get in little discussions with these national meteorologists that try to put up some they put up those pictures right there, and they say, oh, look at these contrails today. I was like, you're an idiot. You're doing that just to bring out people like me to talk about this, right? That's all you're doing. And so we go into these great discussions, and I've gotten into some pretty good discussions with these, scientists that work in the weather industry, and they love to throw their facts at me, and I love to take government documents and send them their way. And, we just have this little thing kind of going back and forth. Some people might call that petty, but the problem is we're doing it in a public setting where they're trying to share a lie with the public to make them believe that this is what's really going on when that's a lie. And people know that's 100% a lie, or they feel that's not right. And so I want to just give the public, especially like that report where it was the U.S. Air Force force multiplier, where we're going to control the weather in 2025 to its entirety. That's my favorite one to run out there, because it's a great little 50-page synopsis that I can send out there. And it's like, you just sit there and go to the bathroom and read this thing, and you're going to go, oh my goodness, this is real. This is the U.S. Air Force that put this out there. This isn't something that Lyle Dach made up because he had a bad day one day and didn't have nothing else to do, right? So, there's
because you never have anything to do, right, Lyle?
I've never had nothing to do, right? Yeah, you and me both.
Well, let's wrap. I know we need to wrap up. I know you've got to get going. Lyle, final thoughts for everybody out there. I did post, I don't know, I try to post it to everywhere, but it might not have gotten everywhere. We posted the links to the bill. Again, it's ledge.wa.gov, House Bill 2222 or 2222. And then you can find the full bill, and, through there, you can find the committee, and also watch there if it does get a hearing, get notifications on that. We did also list the contact information for the leadership of that committee. We need everybody to, do every Washingtonian. We need you to get on the horn and help get this bill a hearing. That's our call to action. Please do that. Number one. And then I also posted the geoengineeringwatch.org website, which you shared with us, and we showed some things from. So final comments, Lyle.
I'm super excited that this bill made it to where it's at right now. It's not all the way there. I'm very appreciative to Representative Rob Chase for listening to his constituents, hearing the concerns, and really doing something about it. He stepped up to the mantle on this one. He might get laughed out of the legislative, building, but I don't think so at this point. My ask would be for our legislators to please seriously read over this and consider this bill. We need to get this passed. We need to get it onto committee so we can talk about it. I'm willing to go to Olympia and talk about it. To the viewers out there that know this is going on or don't quite know if this is going on, if you have any questions of any kind, if you have any recommendations of any kind, you're not going to offend me. Please tag me on my Facebook, whatever you want to do, private message me, go through UnBolted and try to get a hold of me that way. I can share a whole bunch of information that we didn't even go over today. I mean, it's endless what I can share with you. And it's all fact-based. This is nothing that just some podcaster came up with. This is fact-based information from our government. So I can provide all of that. And then I would just say, this isn't a Spokane, Washington issue. This is a statewide call to action. We need everybody in Federal Way, Seattle, Whatcom County, wherever you're at in the state of Washington, Omak, Moses Lake. And by the way, a couple of our people on our team are from Moses Lake. They're actually city council and GOP members over that way, right? They've served their time in public office, and they're concerned about it too. So we have people from the mid portion of our state that are part of our committee here and that have discussed this into great lengths. And so I would just encourage you all to please, just take a moment to, make an email that you can send to each one of them. It just can be copy, paste, repeat, right? So, and just kind of go down the line of everybody. And then if you felt inclined to give them your phone number or why you're concerned and talk about it, that'd be even better. That'd be fantastic if we could do that. And I just look forward to this thing getting into committee, and I'm willing to go the distance with this. MJ, I know you are. And so I appreciate your time on this. And that's what I would have to say about this.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to the people that we've been working. I know you said your earlier group, but the other people that have been helping us behind the scenes kind of get to this point and get that bill, help get that bill written that Representative Rob Chase sponsored. Carolyn Hall from Spokane County, obviously Representative Rob Chase, Spokane Valley City Council member Jessica Yeager has been watching this. We've been sharing pictures. Lyle, of course, and Sandra Markison from Grant County, from the center of the state. Mark Anthony, local advocate in PCO extraordinaire, Victor from Grant County, as county, I believe he's a county, is he a county commissioner or city councilman?
I think he's city council, Victor Lombardi, right?
Yes, so, Victor Lombardi, and he's also part of the GOP. And of course, Christopher Wild, who's been taking some amazing time-lapse videos here in Spokane of the spraying of the skies. And I've tried to share that. We've sped it up, but it's such a big document that oftentimes the social media doesn't take it. But thanks to all of them. And we want to continue to work on this. If this is something that you're interested in being part of as well, wherever you are, let us know, and we can help welcome you into our committee, our little, action team, or, start one in your own area and start watching this and documenting this information, because it is happening. So watch, don't look up, but please look up, right? Pay attention to what's going on in the skies and what happens. I take my son to work about 8 o'clock in the morning, and every day we're like, wow, look at what they're spraying. And right in front of the sun, it seems like every single day, or at night, all of a sudden they're spraying the moon, why are they spraying it over the moon at night, but here they are. One last thing, Lyle, before I let you go, and I apologize because I know I've kept you longer than we promised you. You've told me about the dark line that exists sometimes when there's not a big white line chemtrail. Tell people what that is and what to look for.
Yeah, so we're pretty convinced that it's probably a graphene trail. It basically primers the rest of the trails that go in, and you'll see what will happen is you'll see just a little persistent trail behind the jet. But then if you look through your glasses, like your sunglasses, you kind of look up, you'll see this dark line kind of persisting through the trail. It's almost, invisible to the naked eye, but if you have your sunglasses on, it's pretty obvious. That is a base layer that they primer with, and then they come back through and you'll see another jet fly over that exact same pattern. My favorite is the one where they sit there and they make those U-turns, like they forgot somebody's luggage at the airport and they're going back to get it. Those are my favorite because, those are the most obvious. Hey, we're spraying the sky. They're trying to create that cloud base in that one specific region because of whatever the humidity temperatures are and everything barometric pressure is doing, that kind of thing. But, MJ, I don't know. Should I give out my phone number in case anybody wants to call?
If you want to, that's up to you.
I don't care. So if you guys ever want to call me, I say, the bigger the group, the better. My number is 509-868-8545, 509-868-8545. Call me, leave a message, text me, whatever you want to do, and we'll get you involved.
And then how about, do you want your email too? Because that might be easier. People might feel a little easier.
Lyle Dach, just like my name spelt on the screen here, all together, no capitals, at gmail.com. Lyle Dach at gmail.com.
Okay, awesome. Lyle, thanks for taking your time out of your busy day today to share with everybody about this important topic that is affecting all of us, even if you're not aware. So we're just trying to raise awareness, and it's really happening, and it's affecting everything in our environment. So thank you again. Blessings to you and your family. Please sign on, email those representatives. Let's get a hearing in Washington State on that bill. At least, first thing that we've got to do is get a hearing, and then we can go from there and try to move it along. But we just implore you to get involved, because that's what it takes. Local action equals national impact, as one of my favorite people likes to say. So General Flynn.
Nobody's coming to save us. It's got to be up to us.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. All right, Lyle. Blessings to you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye-bye.